So whenever I was 17, I was, of course, a senior in high school. One of my teachers, my last period, had slid his number around in a time for me to call him.
Whoa.
I had been told that him and the wife were getting a divorce, they weren't living together, and all that came out, and it was not true. He had lied. He was probably my teacher from 9th or 10th grade to my senior year. So we had built a friendship or a relationship. Looking back now, it was definitely grooming, because
sure,
we would talk like we were best friends, hang out, with the whole class, etc. So I truly believed that he told me that they were getting a divorce, and I believed that. I shouldn't have, but I believed it. So when I called him that night, of course I'm nervous. He was telling me that he had liked me for a couple of years. Just that past summer, he couldn't get me out of his head. Yada yada yada. All the love bombing that you could think of going on went on, and in my brain I truly thought he meant it. I will say, whenever I found out that they were in fact not getting a divorce and that was a lie, I remember having a conversation with the wife at the time, and I want to say, she gave me so much grace that I probably couldn't give to somebody else if they had done. So I just want to put that out there. She was never rude to me. Nothing. Never once. She talked to me a lot about Jesus, and if I believed in Jesus, and if I believe, what I did was wrong, which at the time, I'm 18 years old now, and I know best, etc. Nobody can tell you anything at 18. So we had continued talking, and it had been going on for about a month and a half. My dad had went out of town, and I went and stayed with him, behind my parents' back. So it was just a slippery slope after that. It had kind of made its way around school. We weren't very quiet about it. I guess you could say it wasn't very secretive, because I was 18, didn't think nothing could happen, which is a lie. So it made its way around the school, and one day he had called me the night before and said, I think that they are going to come to the school and question us tomorrow. And so I was prepared for that, because one of the sisters had told him that it was getting around to his niece and stuff at the school that him and I were in a relationship. So we carried on our relationship. Then the detectives did come in. We were put in separate rooms, questioned for hours. Cops were there. All the above that you can think of.
Dang.
So I remember going home that night and panicking. And I get a call from an unknown number, and it's him asking what I had said to the detectives. Which, that first interview, I really didn't give a whole lot at all. I pretty much denied. Well, it was Thanksgiving break, and I remember I'm going to have to tell my dad about this. My dad had custody of us, me, my brother, and my sister. But my plan was to tell him after Thanksgiving. Family dinner was over. Well, I get a call Thanksgiving morning, and it's my dad. And I instantly knew why he was calling me. And he had asked me about it, and I had told him the truth. And he told me that we needed to sit down after Thanksgiving. Pretty much told me that there was no reason for somebody to go to jail over something that I consented to. So we sat down and we had conversations, and was told that him and I were not allowed to talk anymore. And of course, being young and dumb, found a way around that. Should have just let it be, but can't take it back now.
I'm surprised the dad didn't go up there trying to lay some hands. You feel me? Throw some bows. Do your research on throwing paws. Throwing bows. You feel me? I'm gonna put them paws on you.
I did a lot, of wrong things, especially to, the wife. I should have ended it as soon as I found out that they were in fact not getting a divorce, but I didn't. Nobody could tell me anything. My dad had tried to talk some sense into me, like whenever I was going to be in my prime of my life, I was probably going to have to be changing his diapers. It was rough, and it was really rough. And me, I was 18, and I was fully head over heels in love. Thought that he was going to be my forever. So as soon as all these court case started coming out, of course, that's whenever his divorce was going through, finally. So after that, before he was ever divorced, I was pretty much already proposed to, which I thought was done out of, I guess, a good heart. Looking back now, he proposed to get out of jail. He needed me to marry him, that way he could not be, that way I couldn't go up on the stand and testify, truthfully. I don't think he ever truly loved me at all. But
Is that how that would work? Like, just because you get married, like, you can't, like, charges can't be brought against you because of that? I don't know.
I mean, that's here nor there, because you just don't do things like that to people that you love. So we ended up getting married at the end of my senior year. I think it was in June that we got married, because we had to wait 60 days after his divorce was final. And on that 61st to 62nd day, we were married. And this was international news. It had been going on. We were being followed by multiple news outlets. But back to that, we were living together, married, fine, and he started being very abusive mentally at first. When we got married, it was how he was worried that I was going to go tell the world. I remember my dad sitting me down and talking about it, and I remember wanting to protect him so bad because I knew how much trouble he could get into, that I literally lied and said I was the aggressor, when in reality he put the sticky note on the desk and gave it to me that said his number and the time to call him. But I was willing to protect him at all cost. But if that even meant me getting in trouble, that's what I wanted to do. So the mental abuse started first. There was one time where we were in an argument. He had woke me up at 3 a.m. Arguing with me about it, because my dad was helping the DA, which I can't blame him. I was his baby, and some grown man who knew better didn't care. So he's yelling at me in the middle of the night to call my dad and ask my dad why my dad wants him in jail so bad. It had gotten really bad. It started on I needed to call the ex-wife and apologize for ruining her family. When in reality, all I ever did was to protect him. He had chased me down a hallway, our long hallway one time, to grab my phone because of how bad it was. I was trying to call his sister. And I just let all this stuff go in the morning because I didn't want him to be in trouble. So we moved to a bigger city. Things were okay for a little bit, and that's when things get rocky again. The mental abuse and the verbal abuse comes back. The things that I allowed him to do to me blows my mind, because I would have never, ever have allowed that with anybody else. So we remained married. I was working really hard, because he, of course, got fired from his job as a teacher, as he should. And we had bills and child support to pay at this point. So I made sure to get a good job where I could help support both sides. So when we went to get our marriage certificate, it was told we needed to go to a different county than what we lived in. That way that the DA couldn't block the, marriage certificate. I don't really know how that works. So we went and got our marriage certificate in Coleman County, and then headed straight down to Gulf Shores and went to the Gulf Shores Wedding Chapel pretty much, and got married within an 8 to 10 hour span. So, I had to break it to my dad after that yes, we had indeed got married. Everybody was blowing me up. So when we got married and we got back, things were great at the beginning. And that's when everything started to go downhill. We moved. We constantly had people following us from the news. And it truly was sad. Looking back on it, like, I can't believe.
That's crazy that this dude put himself in so much hot water like that. Like, yeah, that's just crazy to me. Like, the news watching y'all, this is like a huge deal, bro. Like
I accepted what I accepted. But it is what it is at this point. I'm finally healing and growing from it. But there were certain rules that I had to follow pretty much by him whenever we got married. I could not go out without makeup, like full face of makeup every day, because it made me.
And I ain't gonna lie, I'm the opposite. Like, please don't wear no fucking makeup around me. Like, I really don't too much care for that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, do it every once in a while, but don't wear that shit every day. Like, do that shit one time a week or some shit. You know what I'm saying? When you fuck with a nigga like me, I don't really like that shit. I ain't gonna cap to y'all, but to each his own, But I don't like no makeup.
Look older, because he was an older man.
Oh, I get it. Oh, that nigga slick. That nigga like put makeup on and look older. Oh my god.
Looked like we were, father-daughter. But he thought that if I wore makeup, that, it'd all be fine. Things started getting rocky, like the mental abuse that I talked about in part 1. That was just a touch of it. He would tell me that I needed to call the ex and apologize for ruining her family. I was told, of course, that I had to wear makeup. I was told I wasn't pretty, fat, all the names that you can think of, I was called. And, he would, if he didn't want that to happen to his child, it should have never happened to me. But it is what it is at this point. So life went on like that. He had several guns, and there was multiple arguments where he would put the gun to his head and tell me to end it, or he'd put it to my head and tell me to end it. And I remember there was one specific fight that we had gotten into, and it was in front of a bunch of our friends. We used to have like these little block parties with people in our neighborhood. He would end up arguing with me at the end of the night because it would be 9 o'clock. He's ready to go home. I'm 21. I'm not ready to go home. So we had ended up getting in an argument, and several people ended up after that messaging me asking if I was okay. So that was there. They had multiple red flags before that, but that kind of sealed the deal with them, that they knew I was being physically and verbally and mentally abused, financially abused, etc. When all I wanted to do was protect him. It was constantly told, are you gonna go to the news, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I was never going to. Whenever we were married, whenever I asked for a divorce, it was a couple weeks after that night, after our friends had reached out to us. He had went through my phone one night and had seen where I was messaging my dad proof of abuse, and I was messaging one of our really good friends proof of abuse, and one of our really good friends was like, this isn't worth that, like, you deserve more than that. There's somebody out there that's going to give you everything that you want
and not hit on you
and need, and won't talk to you like that, won't put a gun to your head, won't put a gun to their head,
right?
All the above. So it was like a week after that. I remember I was not allowed to talk to my dad during the duration of mine and his relationship. He held a grudge against my dad because my dad was helping the DA of the case, so I was not allowed to talk to my dad, which was really hard because my dad had custody of us for as long as I could have remembered. I don't ever remember a time where he didn't. I was so young. So that was really hard. I wasn't mad at my dad for doing that. I mean, I kind of was, but I kind of wasn't. He was doing what he thought was best for his child, as would anybody, as would I at this point. So I was not allowed to talk to him unless, we were in an argument. He was telling me to blow his phone up, asking why he wants him to go to jail, etc. So that was kind of the gist of that. And I remember I called my dad in the middle of nowhere. I had had enough. We had a sectional couch, and I was held down in the corner of it to where I couldn't get up. And of course the gun had came out again. It always did. And I remember telling my dad, like, I'm done, I'm ready to be out. And I sat in that abuse for almost 5 years. And even at the end of it, I remember talking to my dad, because whenever I asked for a divorce and he knew that I wanted one, all he was worried about was, what was I going to say to everybody? Was I going to take it to the news? Was I going to sell my story? Etc. He was never worried about losing his marriage to me because he loved me. He was worried about himself. He was selfish in that moment, didn't care. And I even told my dad, whenever I had called my dad and told him, I was like, look, I want a divorce. My dad was like, well, I thought y'all were okay. Are you just in an argument? Like, are you just mad at him and tomorrow you're going to be okay? And I had to break it to my dad that a grown man was hitting his child. And that was really, really hard. Like, It makes me tear up now because I still remember the conversation. And even in the conversation after that, and after I had showed him the proof, all I had told him was, if I tell you the rest, you'll kill him. And he said, baby, I'm not going to kill him. And I said, well, I think you'll pay somebody to. And he said, baby, I promise you I won't touch a hair on that man's head, nor will I pay somebody to. And I ended up having to tell my dad that I was being very, very, very abused. Mentally, physically, emotionally, anything that you can think of. I was so beat down by the time of it. Like, I truly believed everything he said. That I wasn't worthy of our relationship. All the above. I wasn't pretty enough. Wasn't skinny enough. I, had to wear makeup all the time. All of that. And that was a really hard thing to finally admit, because I would have never admitted it had people not started pointing it out, like, you don't deserve that and there's more out there. So it wasn't very long after that, my dad had told me, well, let's get some things in order, like tough it out for about a week, get your paycheck put into your physical account, not your joint account, get all that situated, and let's get you out of there. And he had planned a time for him to come up whenever my ex was at work, and we were going to move all my stuff out. So I think it was like 2 days before that, 2 or 3 days, he had woke me up and he was like, I went through your phone, like, I know X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to work today, etc. Anything that you can think of. I'm coming home from work, like, I can't believe that you would do this, yada yada yada. I mean, it was just nonsense after that. So I remember calling my dad and one of my really good friends in the neighborhood, because I knew he would be home, that I had already told them what had been going on, and I was like, look, he's coming, he went through my phone, like, he's coming back from work, and I'm worried. So he gets back from work, and of course the gun and everything starts coming out.
Oh my God.
And I remember calling the friend, and he had me by the arm on the phone with him, and I just remember the friend being like, let her go or I'm gonna come down there. My dad was like, call the cops. I ended up going to work because I had to work that night. I ended up going to work, and my assistant manager, her and I were really good friends. She went to that house with a box cutter in her back pocket and grabbed all my clothes. I didn't care about the furniture that I had in there. I didn't care about the TVs. I didn't care about the blankets. I didn't care about anything. All I said was, get my clothes. She literally went with a box cutter in the back of her pocket because she was worried about it too.
She was about to cut a nigga. Hey man, I will say that, this is terrible. You know what I'm saying? Dude should have definitely went to jail. He groomed this young lady, sneaking his number. You know what I'm saying? On her, like, from a young at 17, he the teacher last period. got a little piece of paper. You know what I'm saying? Here you go. Like, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? And this is, and then he married her to not go to jail, and then he abusing her. Like, this is crazy, man. You got some crazy people out in the world, and sound like this dude had like a mental issue or some shit. I don't know what's going on with him. Just crazy.
And I want to say, like, this is national, international news. This isn't to embarrass anybody. It's part of my healing journey for my story to get out there. So whenever she went and grabbed my clothes, I had moved in with my mom. I was staying with her a little bit, my best friend. And all he was worried about that whole entire time was I going to go to the news? Was I going to tell my side of the story? Was I going to paint him in a bad light? Because that's all he was worried about, was his image on how he never did that. Which, I know I'm not the first woman he abused, and I know I'm not the last either. But I remember my dad telling me one specific thing. He had ended up calling my dad and asking, like, could he talk to me? And, see if there was any way that we could work it out. My dad was just like, look, like, I can't make her love you. Like, whatever's happened has happened. So whenever I'd moved in with my mom, that, love bombing starts again. He's like, I'll get rid of the guns. Like, I'll do whatever to make you comfortable. Like, I just want to be with you. And it was never that he wanted to be with me. It was that he did not want everybody to know who he was and how he was. And it's truly sad for, every party in it, including said child. So whenever I told my dad I wanted a divorce, and that came up, he had me an appointment, I think a week later, with an attorney. My dad did. He paid for it.
Shout out to Pops.
And I went in, and the only thing I asked for was my car, and that was it. I needed the car that was in my name. He could keep the one that was in his name. Didn't matter to me. And then I remember we had to meet back up for us both to sign the divorce papers. And he was like, well, I've got X, Y, and Z of her stuff that she left in my car. I need the key back to the apartment. And I remember my attorney being like, let's go outside to get it, but you're not going to be outside with him alone, because we're not going to do that, especially after everything. And I remember he had called me to the apartment, and he was like, please, let's just talk. And this was before we met with the attorney. He had his sister there. And we're going through everything, everything that had been done, everything that had been said. And it was just protect him at all costs. He admitted it, because he admitted it to my dad and he admitted it to my mother. But he was not in the wrong. Never in the wrong, was he? It was always my fault. Always. I deserved it, X, Y, and Z. So I remember having that conversation and showing the proof and telling them, and I was literally told that it was not as bad as I'm making it seem. So I was told, well, it's not the abuse isn't as bad as what you're saying it is, so you need to stay and you just need to take it. And at that point, I was done. Whenever I'm that person, like, whenever I'm done, and there's no going back. I don't have anything for you at that point. So I was at that point. I was very much at that point. So I remember going, I'm leaving, and he didn't want me to leave, and he was yelling at me, and the sister was like, no, you need to let her go. And so I left, went back home to my mother's, and after that, it was pretty much done. He had showed up at my work one time, maybe twice. He had showed up at my work unannounced. And things ended up happening, and my boss was like, no, you need to go home, and I'm going to actually send you to Tuscaloosa. That way you can get away from it for a little bit. He followed me all the way to Tuscaloosa. Like, crazy things. Crazy things. And at the end of it, I didn't care what happened to me. I still was on lookout for him. And looking back, that is sick to me, how you can do that to somebody, especially somebody that you claim you love. Knowing how hurt and beat down I was, that I believed everything, all the negative that he had said, knowing that he very well did that. And He just didn't care. He played on that. So this is not about my marriage now. So the very good friend that helped me through a lot of this, we are married. We did not have an affair. Nothing like that happened. We did not get together till a year and a half, 2 years after my divorce. And I truly thought that my ex-husband loved me until I got with my husband now. And the amount of love that man has for me, that my ex never had love for me. Never. There's no way. He had love for himself, and he was only on the lookout for himself. And I think that's the only reason he stayed, is because he was worried about me telling my side of the story.
Well,
I've told this
not
side.
even going to jail, because I guess he can't go to jail now. I guess I don't know how that works. Like, if you marry, can you? I gotta look that shit up. Let me see.
One time before, and I was called and pretty much threatened for anything that you can think of, because I didn't show up to the court date, which I didn't have to because I was not subpoenaed to. I was threatened and bullied to take it off the internet. Well, everybody's grown now. I truly believed at the end of it, like, I literally thought it was just me and I was depressed. I literally went and got myself on medication because I thought it was just me. I was depressed, etc. And now that I'm in therapy, I've been in therapy since about 6 months after we divorced. It was a very, very, very downward spiral for me after that. That I couldn't come to terms with what I had allowed that grown man to do to me. And it just ate me up. It ate me up. I'm actually on the way home from therapy right now, which is, partly the reason why I'm telling my story. And I used to say, like, I don't know how, like, I can't forgive him. How do I move on from this now? And, at the end of the day, like, I don't forgive him for him. I forgive him for me. I forgive myself and give myself grace. Because, no, I did not deserve that. But I was so also mad at myself that I had stayed and I allowed that to happen to me. So, I'm sorry to myself. Like, I try to give myself grace with that, because that's just a hard thing to go through at 17, 18, 19 years old. Looking back now, like, I see all the red flags, but then, like, I was 17 and 18, you couldn't have told me. I knew everything. I truly believe that the whole frontal lobe thing, once that develops, like, you see a whole different...
For sure. They say the frontal lobe doesn't develop until you're 25. You know what I'm saying? So I personally don't think you should be able to make a lot of decisions until you're 25. Like maybe, like, even drinking. Something like drinking. I'm trying to think of what else.
Side. But if this could, if anybody's going through this, like, it's just not worth it. The abuse isn't worth it. This needs to be your sign to get out, because you deserve better, and there is better out there.
Oh, this is another thing too. Age of consent, right? So depending on which state you in, sometimes the age of consent is 15, 16 in certain states. I'm about to look that up as well. But stay from pursuing charges if they choose.
My husband now, he never
so basically, I guess it really basically depends heavily on the state law, you know what I'm saying, and the ages involved. You see what I'm saying? That's kind of like what I'm getting here. Yeah.
Never yells at me, doesn't slam things down, doesn't point guns at me, doesn't point guns at himself, doesn't, put my head through a wall, doesn't choke me. None of the above. That man just truly loves me, and I truly love him with every part of my being. And that's all I can hope for people that are going through that same thing. And it may not be that you married your teacher. It may just be, that you're in domestic violence, and it just know, like, you're seen, you're heard, and it will get better, and you will find better.
All right. Yeah, man. So y'all let me know what y'all think. So the common minimum age of consent in the US is 16, so it's not 15. So it's 16. So and she was 17. So, I'm not sure if that marriage like really saved him or not, or could charges still have been brought. I don't know.
I'm going to kind of give y'all like a rundown of like the big things that I could remember that I allowed and I accepted and I thought I had deserved it. Number one, being the top one, was I was told to call his ex and apologize and try to get them back together. No one deserves that, but I think he did it because he knew that's what hurt me the most.
To get them back
number
together?
two would, if we were in a fight, it was never like, let's sit down and talk about it like adults. It was a knockout, drag out, and it would end with him either putting his shotgun to his head and telling me to end it, or putting it to my head and putting my hand on it and telling me to end it. No one deserves that. Nobody. Number two was I was always forced to wear makeup. If I didn't, it was an argument. Didn't matter where we were going. Didn't matter if we were sitting at home. Always had to have a full face of makeup on. He said I looked older with makeup, and if I was not wearing makeup, of course, people thought he was my dad. I mean, he was 19 years older than I am.
19
Nobody
years.
deserves that either. Some other things that I accepted was
17.
always, when it was a knockout, drag out, like I would be crawling down our hallway trying to get away from him, and it was just like tower on top of me. I wasn't allowed to talk to my dad. I could only talk to my mom and my sister, but when my sister had my nephew and my niece, they were not allowed to come over. They were not allowed to stay the night. Nothing. He wanted nothing to do with my family. It was a fight if I wanted to go see them, etc. No one deserves that either. That's him trying to alienate you. So I just want to say, like, there's plenty more that I could go back and I can say, but that's just like the top that I constantly think about. It took me a long time and a lot of therapy to realize that I did not deserve any of that, and I should have never had to go through that. And whenever I say like I forgive him, it's not for him, it's for me. Because had his child had to come to him and say what I had to go tell my dad, he would have ended up wanting to kill somebody. And so it was kind of just like an FU. So I'm just telling you now, like, October is Domestic Violence Awareness, and I want to bring awareness to it, because nobody deserves that, whether you're a male or you're a female. Nobody deserves to be abused. Nobody deserves to go through that. Nobody deserves to go through worse. I will say it never gets better, and I think I hung on to hope that it would get better, and it never gets better. It only ever gets worse, and I truly mean that. There was times where I was choked in between our sectional couch where it bees. So I just want to say, like, if you're in it, there is a way out, and there's a brighter side to it. I will say him and I are no longer together. We've been divorced years now. Who y'all see on my Facebook, where I just got married March 1st of 2025.
Okay, congratulations, baby.
To the love of my life. And whenever I tell y'all, if you're in it right now, I know it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm telling you it's there. Whenever I tell you this man's love for me runs so deep, he could never and would never do the things that have been done to me. He has built walls around my walls so people can't hurt me, and he would literally do everything in his power to protect me, and that's what everybody deserves. So I feel like I need to clear some things up.
Okay.
So my dad told me that he didn't want him to get in trouble because of something that we both consented to, but that was just to get me to open up to him and tell him the whole truth. That way he could go and tell the district attorney and the police department, and he did.
Oh.
That's exactly what he
Nice,
did.
pops.
He took it, and for a while I was mad at him because I feel like he betrayed my trust, but I betrayed his trust too. But now I see, because if it was my child,
For sure.
I'd be doing the same thing.
For sure, 100%.
The next question is, how old was he? So I was 17,
36.
turning 18, and he was 36 or 37, something like that. He was 19 years older than me. No, we never had a child.
Okay, that's good. At least that's good.
I had a good upbringing. I can touch more on that. But he was comfortable enough to slide his number around on the thing on his desk because there was previous interest. A lot of people have a question about how court went and why it was illegal whenever I was 18. So I'm going to kind of touch on that. So it was illegal. In the state of Alabama, you have to be 19 to date a teacher. That means any teacher in the state of Alabama couldn't, even if I wasn't directly his student, he would still have gotten in trouble. Doesn't matter that I was 18 in the state of Alabama, you have to be 19. And I did hide some information that kept him with the most minor charge that he could have had. He got sexual abuse of a student under the age of 19, I think is what the exact charge was. And I'll tell you kind of how court went that day. So when we were going through all this court process, we ended up getting married. Back then I thought, he's marrying me because he was in love with me, and no, it was to completely save himself from being arrested or having more convictions on him. So he did go to jail. He bailed out. And then we had this year's worth of court. So it came down to, being that we got married, I technically didn't have to testify against him because he was then my spouse. So what the DA did was set up a court date, and we had to go to Huntsville, and a judge had to rule if I had to testify or not. It was said that if I got up on the stand and I said I'm not testifying because he's my husband, I would have not been held in contempt. So I kind of got my right, but without getting my right, because I was said that I had to be up there at least at the podium. So after that court date, I had to get my own attorney. I couldn't use his no longer. So my attorney said that if I was not subpoenaed, then I did not need to show up to court. She never subpoenaed me. He told me to go to work and go home and go get groceries. Everything that was in my normal routine I needed to do. I didn't need to run from getting a subpoena, etc. She just thought, in my opinion, that I was going to show up because that was my husband, and that was it. I was never subpoenaed. So the day of court, from what I was told, they went in and they were picking the jury. And then that first day, she had said that I was not there and that I needed to be there. And my attorney said that they asked for the subpoena and she couldn't provide it because I was never served one. So they spent that whole afternoon and night trying to subpoena me, and never could. I did what I was supposed to. I went home, went to work, got food, etc. Again, I was still never subpoenaed. She tried to tape it on the apartment door, and I was not at our apartment. She tried to tape it on the door, and the judge still said no. So being that I was not there, she did not have the victim of the crime there to testify. So it kind of threw the case out. So he was acquitted of his crime, because I did not show up to court. Absolutely, then I thought that I was doing no wrong. It was a great relationship. It wasn't a wrong situation. I wasn't groomed. I wasn't a victim. And looking back now, after everything that I went through, completely wrong. Completely wrong. I was groomed. I was a victim, and there was multiple adults that tried to help me and save me from the situation. Still a lot of questions about my dad. I want to reiterate, I have a great dad. My dad has had custody of us since we were young. No one, and I mean no one, could have expected this from me. When I say I was not in trouble, like, I was a very good kid, was home by 7 or 8 o'clock at night, never got in fights. Like, I was a all-around good kid.
So my dad still had to work, and he was out of town when all of this started. So I had went up to Gunnersville, and me and said teacher had stayed in a camper up in Gunnersville for that week that my dad was gone. So it was a very big shock when this came out. Like, my dad was very shocked about it. My whole family was. So he kind of played the card of, I don't think he needs to go to jail if it's something that you consented to and you're 18 years old, but we need to sit down and we need to have a conversation about what has went on. So he played the card right. He did, because I would have never given him the information had he not said that. And I opened up with whatever situation we had came up with. Me and said teacher, I told my dad everything, and he took it directly to the district attorney and to the police, as he should. Then he also made me an appointment with the district attorney and drove me there and told me that I was going to go in and I was going to tell her everything, which I told her the same thing. Me and said teacher had already talked about, I guess, pretty much the story, which was so wrong. But so that's kind of how he got acquitted for his crime. So yes, he married me absolutely to stay out of jail, and I was completely smitten and in love with him. So I also want to touch that I'm sure I'm not the only one he was abusive to. Don't know for sure, but I can also assure you that I was not the last either. He's going to continue to do it to people, and there's probably nothing that anybody's going to be able to stop him unless they file charges against him. So that's pretty much it for right now. I also want to say that everybody coming to me and telling me their stories or similar situations or their domestic violence, abuse, etc., it truly breaks my heart how many people have came to me and told me how much they related to the story that I have given. Like, it truly breaks my heart, because no one deserves that kind of treatment. And I just want to say that I hope that you are better now. I hope that you've gotten out of the situation. If not, I'm praying for you. My thoughts are with you. There's so much more to life than that, and going through that. So I just pray and I hope that soon you can open up and see that it's not right and you can get out of the situation. Questions are like, why or how did your family not know about the abuse that you were going through? So I have a great family. I just want to touch on that. I have a phenomenal family. Whenever me and said teacher got together and my family started working with the police, that was a no-no. It was a no-go. I could no longer speak to my family, especially my dad, especially my brother, especially my stepmother. I was allowed to talk to my mother, and I could talk to my sister. But my sister has 4 children now, but she had 2 whenever all this was going on, and I'm a very big family person. Like, I truly believe in that. And my niece and my nephew are my whole world. All of them are. So I was very much the aunt that would be like, yeah, send them over. Like, I want them to stay the night. Like, loved them, wanted to spend all the money on them, etc. But he was very much against that. It got to the point where, like, whenever I was off work and he was at work, like, I would have to hide that I was going down to visit them. My mom, my niece, my nephew, my sister, I couldn't. And I don't think he even knows, probably still to this day, that I was doing it behind his back. And then my dad especially, I was not allowed to have a relationship with, which was really, really hard, because my dad had custody of us since I could remember. Like, he was my safe spot. If I was sick, like, I wanted my dad. Like, if I was homesick, I wanted my dad. I wanted to be in my dad's house. And that kind of got thrown away whenever all this was going on, and it was very, very hard. And I will say, I was mad at my dad at first too for working with them, because I didn't see, like, what I was doing was wrong, I guess. So I was upset that he had done what he had done. But looking back now, like, I would do it for mine too. I don't hold that against him. But so me not being able to have a relationship with my dad nor my brother, it was really difficult, really, really difficult. And my mom and my sister would tell me all the time about how they were asking how I was doing, all the above. My sister and my mom kind of had an idea that he was being abusive because I wouldn't give too much information. Like, I was always making excuses for him. I literally constantly had makeup on. Like, it didn't matter what I was doing. I had to wear makeup because I looked older. So they kind of had an idea, but never asked me about it because I don't think that they wanted to, like, offend me, or I guess is what the correct word would be. So it took about a year and a half, and I started talking to my dad behind his back. I called my dad. I thought the whole relationship and the abuse, he had put it in my head so much that it was my fault. It was my fault. It was my fault. That I was in such a depressed state. Like, whenever I tell you, like, I was a depressed human. Like, I ended up going to the doctor and getting put on medicine because I thought it was all me. It was all in my head. He wasn't being abusive because that's what he had fed to me for so long. So I finally started talking to my dad. I finally started talking to my brother, but I could only do it behind his back. So that's kind of how that happened. So still, I will say, like, I was a good kid. Nobody could have ever expected this from me. So I will say, like, whenever I had to tell my dad, like, when I told him, it was possibly the hardest thing. I truly thought, like, oh my gosh, like, he's gonna go in this man, like, he's touching his baby. And said teacher did admit to my mother, like, on the phone, that yes, he had been abusive. So there was no denying it. So whenever I had asked for a divorce, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. And I will always appreciate how all my family handled it. Like, they handled it just listening to me and being there for me. You know, whatever I wanted, they were going to support. And said teacher had called my dad whenever I'd asked for a divorce, and I don't really know how that conversation went. My dad kind of touched on it a little bit, but he pretty much just at the end of the phone call said, I can't make her love you. And I'm one of those people that if I'm done, I'm done. I will give it my all until it's no longer good enough, and then once I'm done, I'm done. So I was at that point. I was over it. I was done. So that's kind of how that situation went down. There's no red flags that they could have seen besides he was my teacher and the age gap about the abuse, because I wasn't around them for them to be able to notice. The people that noticed first was our friends. We lived in an apartment complex, and we all had, like, little block parties. We'd all grill out and all, you know, eat. They were the ones that really, really, really saw the red flags and definitely talked to me about it. They were all reaching out, like, something's going on. We don't know what, but we kind of have an idea, and there's so much more to life about that. So there was one specific person that I had told first, and I'll never forget how there he was for me, and it just still blows my mind. All of our friends kind of surrounded me and loved on me and let me know that they were there. I could talk to them about anything. But yeah, so my family really didn't have an idea because I wasn't around enough. I guess that would be the way to answer that question. People wanted to know what our marriage was like and our relationship was like, and if the ex-wife called the police or not. Yes, she did. It was explained to me by him that he fell asleep on the recliner and she went through the phone and found out. Smashed it with a hammer, which is fair if that's how it happened, but he's known to be a liar, so we don't really know. So after that, he got a new phone, and pretty much didn't stop us. So she went to the police, absolutely, and the district attorney, like she should. I want to start out by saying, like, he was not upfront abusive. He actually, like, talked a good game. He wasn't ugly. All the above. Like, we had a pretty good relationship at first, I would say. A good relationship for a 18-year-old and a 37-year-old, which is wrong. But, so I'm going to touch on that. So, at the beginning, like, we did everything together. It was nice. It wasn't just civil. We had a good a good relationship again. It wasn't until about right after we got married. So this all started in September. We got married in June. So like maybe 1 or 2 months afterwards is whenever the red flags of him being abusive really started showing. It should have been a red flag anyways that he was that much older than me and my teacher, but it didn't occur to me at that point. When he woke me up that one morning at 3 a.m. screaming at me to call my dad and ask my dad why my dad wanted him in jail, which we know why my dad wanted him in jail. And I'm boo-hooing on the phone with him. Then there was another time we had gotten in an argument, and one of the times he told me to call his ex-wife and tell her that I was sorry for breaking up his family and to please take him back. And looking back now, I should have, in hopes that she would have. But he had started yelling at me and started like grabbing my arm and stuff like that. So I said, I'm going to call your sister. And we had a very long hallway, and I was like crawling back towards the kitchen and the living room and the dining room, and he's like on top of me the whole way there, wrestling the phone out of my hands. That's why I say the family wasn't like they didn't know things were going on. So that's really whenever it tipped the iceberg. And then whenever he started getting mad, like if my niece and nephews came over, like it was always an argument. And I thought that whenever we moved out of the small town that we're from and we went into the city, that it would get better. We'd be away from everything, be away from everybody talking, and it would just relieve a lot of stress off of our relationship. Little did I know that was going to make it worse. We moved into a studio apartment, and it got really, 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 really bad. Like thrown down the stairs, like crazy things started happening, and we had probably lived in a studio and it got bad there, and then we moved into a 1-bedroom in the same complex, and it would get better. Like after these arguments, it would get better for about a week and maybe 2 weeks, and it would be great. And it's like I would try to focus on the good times, not just the negative times, and it just never worked out. So I want to say abuse does not start automatically in my situation. It actually took a couple of months for that to happen. He ended up proposing to me in the house that him and the ex lived in. He proposed to me, but I picked out the ring, and I pretty much paid for the ring myself, which is stupid. But anyways, more on that. So yes, the ex-wife did go to the police. She smashed the phone. He got a new phone. Whenever we got busted, he also brought me a burner phone. We were not supposed to be in contact, and we were. And my dad and my parents and my grandparents tried to talk me out of it every day. Everybody's asked that. Why didn't your parents try to talk you out of it? They did. They did. They absolutely did. Begged me to, actually. And it just never, ever came to my mind that what I was doing was wrong. And what the situation was wrong. Also, another thing I want to touch on. So, my now husband is not the teacher. We're 9 years apart. I mean, have you seen a 29-year-old man? Like, that's not anything that I'm attracted to.
There's something that I need to clarify that I wasn't very clear with in the beginning, because I've had a comment talk about how different I used to tell this story. So, yes, back whenever all this first happened, 18, 19, 20, 21, I truly thought that there was nothing wrong with what we did. Like, no doubt in my mind, I was right. I was young and dumb. So why I'm telling the story so different now is I've grown up, I've matured, I've been in therapy, and realized how wrong it was. There was so many times they'd be like, oh, well, you laughed about it. Yes, I laughed about the situation of me marrying my high school teacher. And that was completely wrong of me. And that's why I hold blame for myself as well. I never put it all on him. And why I tell it so different now, whenever back then I wouldn't talk about all the abuse I was going through. Number one, I protected him from jail the first time. It wasn't like I wanted him in jail. He was my husband. I loved him. I very much so wanted to protect him and protect his name, and I would have done whatever. I literally told the district attorney that I was the aggressor to try to lessen his charge. So no, I'd never called the cops on him. Didn't do it because I didn't want people to know. It was embarrassing, number one, but also back whenever we first got married and this started, I truly, honestly, I thought I was in the right. I was 18, 19 years old, young, and I truly thought what we did was fine. Now that I'm 29, I've grown up, I've been in therapy for years now, I truly see how wrong it was in all of these situations. And yes, I feel like he groomed me and he definitely was in the wrong, but looking back, like, I feel like I could have protected myself better than what I did. So I just want to touch on that whenever you see comments of, oh, well, you used to laugh about it whenever you were telling the story about y'all getting married. I did. I did. I'm not denying that because I truly thought I did nothing wrong, and I thought he did nothing wrong. I never considered myself a victim back then. Never. It wasn't until I went to therapy, got older, matured, and have a stepdaughter of my own that I realized just how wrong the situation was, period.
Seen the questions, and I'm trying to answer them the best that I can. But a lot of people wondered how we were able to get married if it was illegal, and if he's still a teacher, or if he taught after this. So I want to say no. He definitely did not teach after all this came out. They had put him on placed him on administrative paid leave when all this came out, and it was pretty much aware that we were not allowed to speak because I was considered the victim at that point, that we could not speak unless he was no longer a teacher. So it took him, I think, a month or two, and he resigned as a teacher from the Board of Education. They accepted his resignation, and him and I started talking. So that's how we were able to get a marriage certificate and get married, because it was no longer illegal once he resigned from his position. So that's that. He could not teach after that, cannot teach now, which, as he shouldn't be able to. The other thing I want to touch on is some people are confused. I said we had bills and we had child support. I'm not saying when he resigned, he had a job. It wasn't like he didn't work, and it wasn't like I was paying for everything. He worked. He just didn't make enough. He wasn't making what he made as a teacher. And so, yes, we were married. That's what married people do. You help each other out. And if that meant that I had to pay for child support for a child that wasn't mine, for her to be taken care of, absolutely, I was going to do it. Absolutely. 100%, no questions asked. I wouldn't let any child today go without. So I definitely wasn't going to let my husband and the person I loved child go without. I never got to meet her, which is fine. And whenever I started asking for a divorce, that's what he wanted to say. Oh, well, you can meet her now. And I was so done at that point that I just let him know, like, for her sake and my sake, I don't want to, because I'm telling you that's not going to fix our relationship. I'm done, and that's just going to mess with her head even more than what the whole situation did. So that's kind of how that went, and I would do it today. Like, if him and I in some crazy world were still married today, I would do whatever it took to help pay for child support if that's what was needed. Absolutely. So the other question a lot of people had is, how did his family treat me? And I would say, given the situation at hand, me being his student, him being my teacher, him being 19 years older than I am, I was treated, his mom and his stepdad, I never got to meet his dad. His dad passed, and I hate that. But they were good to me. They were never ugly to me. They were very supportive during the relationship. It wasn't until I asked for a divorce that's whenever, oh, well, you made it seem, or it wasn't as bad as what I was saying. And they would ask me, like, if we take his guns out of the house or out of the apartment, would you be comfortable with staying? And I said no, because that was not the only form of abuse that man used. It wasn't just about the guns. The guns were a big part, but it was never just about the guns. And I want to say that. It was never just about the guns. And that's kind of what they played on. Like, oh, well, it was just solely about the guns. He was going to be that way regardless if there was guns or not in that house. He would constantly tell me to call the ex-wife and apologize to her and try to get her back for him. I mean, there was just so many levels to the abuse that it's crazy. And a lot of people, oh, well, you know, of course I told the story different whenever we were married. I loved him. Well, why didn't you call the cops? I loved him. Regardless of that, I loved him, and I protected him from jail once. It was not like I wanted him in jail. We were still married. I'm the type of person that I focus on the good. Even whenever I shouldn't, and I should focus on the bad. I see the good in everybody. And I want to see the good in everybody. And so it wasn't like it was every day he was beating me or being emotionally and mentally abusive. That's not how it was. We had good days. Whenever it was good, it was really good. And whenever it was bad, it was really bad. And that's the only thing that I can say about that. That's another thing. Like, if you take anything from this, talk to your children, even if they're older. Let them know, like, there's so many signs of grooming and abuse and domestic violence and emotional and mental abuse. Because I used to tell, whenever I got out, I used to tell people, I almost would have rathered him hit me than use the mental abuse tactics that he did, because it messed with my brain and it made me feel like I deserved that. And I didn't deserve that. No one deserves that. And I literally had told people that I would have rathered him put his hands on me physically than to say the things that I was being told. So, that's another thing that I will say. And that's just coming from the domestic violence and the abuse, the mental abuse. There's been multiple people that I have talked to that have felt the same way. But back to his family, I was treated well until I asked for the divorce. He flipped out whenever I had finally called my dad at my job and told him everything that was going on. My dad was going to come get me. He had went through my phone and saw where that was happening. So before that, I had acted like everything was okay, because I knew that whenever I left, and the plan was that I was leaving when he went to work one day. And he had found out before, and he had came home, and it was just full-blown argument. And all he was worried about was if I was going to go to the news or if I was going to get him in trouble. So it was never about, oh, I love you and I'm fixing to lose you and I don't want that. It was never about that. It was, he was scared that I was going to the news and I was going to get him in more trouble. Which I don't, there's no way I could get him in more trouble now. So, I mean, is what it is. And everybody's like, well, you're sharing it so much later. And I'm coming from a place now, healing. It took me a long time to forgive him for me. I held so much resentment towards him that it took years of therapy for me to attempt to get over it. Years. So whenever I finally did, like, I feel like I should be able to tell my story on what I went through, because I lived it. I'm the one that went through it. And nobody's abuse and domestic violence should ever be unnoticed or made them feel like they shouldn't come out and talk about it. That should have never happened. I'm 29 now, been divorced, I think since 2018 or 2019 at some point. But I kind of want to touch on, a lot of people are like, well, how do you know, like, he had a crush on you since 9th or 10th grade? So I'm kind of going to go over that part. So I want to say he started teaching my 9th grade year. I'm almost positive it was my 9th grade year. He was a math teacher, so I had him for math, and I had him 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So 4 years. I will say that first year, there was multiple kids that talked about how he was cute, all the above, okay? He's not an ugly man, and I will say that. So that's kind of how that came out of, there was multiple kids that thought he was cute. He was not an ugly man. So whenever my 9th and 10th grade year, I just wish I had that personality back. Because I was so outgoing, like had a great attitude about anything and everything. And looking back now, like what I thought then was just like a friendly relationship. Like it was flirtatious. There was multiple times where students in all the other classes, like if he was in a bad mood, they'd be like, Amy, you need to go in there and see what's wrong with him. And that's kind of how it happened. Back then I was like, oh, it's just friendly fun. Okay. Now it was definitely flirtatious on both parts, and I'm not denying that. So it was definitely a very flirtatious relationship from 9th to 12th grade. But it really amped up my 11th and 12th grade year. I will say my 11th because we got busted at the beginning of my 12th grade year. So he pretty much wasn't at school. He was there maybe 2 or 3 months. So it was definitely flirtatious, especially when people be like, oh, he's like looking at you this way. He's like looking at your butt whenever you're walking by. And whenever we got together, he never denied that. It was definitely very much there. Like you could literally ask him, who's your best friend, whenever I was in 9th to 12th grade, and he would say Amy. So I found out one morning he showed up, I think to my mom's house, and pretty much said that the ex-wife had found my number and us talking on his phone, and smashed it. I don't know how true that is. I don't blame her if she did smash the phone. Could he have smashed it? Sure. But I was told she smashed the phone. So he ends up getting a new phone, one for normal, and then one as a burner phone for him and I to speak. I was also told she found that one a couple weeks after that. And so whenever they really started living separately, I will say that, he had a camper. My dad, like I said, would have never expected this from me. He went out of town. My stepmother was a nurse. She, worked 3 p.m. to 3 a.m., I think. And I was supposed to be staying at my mom's. Now, no, my mom did not know this either. But so we ended up taking the camper to Gunnersville and stayed there for that full week that my dad was out of town. And this is what I'm saying, like, we were not very secretive about it. Like, showed up at school in the same vehicle. Like, of course, people are going to start understanding, like, what is going on. So a lot of my friends started questioning it, because who wouldn't at that point? A lot of the teachers were catching on, and that's how, like, the week before Thanksgiving, the day that we were getting out for Thanksgiving break, is whenever the police and the detectives and the district attorney showed up at the school. His then wife did speak to the police and the detective and the district attorney. I want to always reiterate that. She definitely did. My dad told me what he told me to get me to open up to him and tell him the whole truth. And that's exactly what he set it for. And as soon as I told him everything, because he was writing it down, he went to the district attorney himself and the police, and then also drove me to a meeting with the district attorney and the detective. There was 2 times that I had talked to the then wife when we were going through all this, and like I said, both times she was possibly one of the nicest humans in that type of situation, because I don't think I could have given somebody the grace that she gave me, and I still appreciate that till ends. Her and I had spoke briefly after the last time I posted about this. This was like maybe 2 years ago, and I hope my apology to her came off genuine. He didn't bully me into taking it down. She didn't either. I took it down because it had a lot of her story in it, and it is not my job to tell the story that I was told by him to everybody. So that's pretty much why it was taken down. Plus, there was also multiple threats from other people. And very much so bullying. So, yes, 9th through 12th grade, he was definitely flirtatious. We were definitely flirtatious, and we were not very secretive at all. Like, you could tell it in the hallways, you could tell it in the classroom. So, I just want to point that out. We were not secretive about it. We thought we were, but we were not. Also, there was 4 other people in the county before us that had got busted. 4 other teachers, and I just want to say that. I grew up in a very, very small town. There's not really many men to choose from. So when we got busted, we technically were not allowed to speak, and we found a way to do so anyways. We had remained in contact the whole time, pretty much. And then whenever he resigned, we were able to start speaking again. We moved in together pretty much the day I graduated. I lived with my dad up until the day I graduated, but I was 18. You couldn't have told me anything. So that's whenever I moved in. I didn't even tell my dad I was moving out, packed my stuff, and went to the apartment that he had. It was like a couple days later that my dad had called me, and he was like, "Have you moved out?" And I told him yes. So we have been living together from then on. Everybody's like, the news? Yes, the news. Like, local news, national news, international news. Like, we were followed very much. There was multiple times that we were offered to, sell our story to the news. And, of course, it wasn't in his best interest or our best interest at the time for us to do so. So we did not. And I want to say everybody's like, oh, well, you're coming on here for clout now. Like, I never needed clout. I was already national and international news. It's part of, I need it off my chest, and this is how I'm healing moving forward. And if that hurts his feelings or his family's feelings, it is what it is. Not my problem. Should have never done it. I should have never done it. But I'm okay with speaking how I was guilty in that situation. I'll give you the background of what I did personally to try to stay in the relationship, and try to stay in the marriage. And I didn't ever bring up to him that I wanted a divorce until I was done. He probably had zero clue that I wanted a divorce until the day he went through my phone with my dad, because I knew that once he knew, it was going to be crazy. He had a very big problem with roids. Starts with an S. And that comes with roid rage. I hope he's not doing that anymore, because that definitely played a factor in it. So I knew that whenever he found out, he was going to go off the walls. So I wanted to say, I literally put so much blame on myself in that relationship of whenever I started falling out of love with him. I thought it was just me. Thought I was depressed, thought I had issues, mental issues. And I'm not saying I don't, but because of what I did, but I truly thought it was all on me. I was the problem, is how he made it to seem. So I went to the doctor and I talked to him, and I was depressed because of the situation I was in, and we talked about the depressive medicines that I could get on, and like a mood stabilizer, and I did all the things. I did it. None of those worked. They made me feel more crazier than what I actually was. So this started a whole downward spiral. I was drinking, partying. I had started dabbling in opiates, as you can see on my profile. So I chose to put those in my body. Absolutely. It was my fault. So I take full accountability for that. I did that. But I was doing anything I could to stay and to just be numb. Didn't want to feel it anymore because it was on my mind daily. Even though we weren't arguing like every day. We maybe had an argument every 2 weeks. The words that he would say stuck with me. And whenever I say stuck with me, I never forgot it. And I still have not forgotten it to this day. And I won't. I will never be able to forget the words that were told to me and said so sincere that I believed it. And I believed I deserved that. So I was doing anything I could to just be numb. So when his mom, not his mom, but his sister came over that night and we were all talking, this was after I asked for a divorce, and she tried to say, it's not that bad. That same night, like, I was like, it is that bad. Like, these are the steps, like, I've taken to see if it's me. Because I didn't want it to just be me, and I thought it was my fault. I had tried these different medicines, and they were like, oh, yeah, see, it is you. And I'm like, no, because I had done what I needed to do, and it wasn't helping, and I was still just as miserable. And I can probably say the words that he spoke to me and the words that he said to me, he probably wasn't happy either. Because a happy person don't say those kind of things to somebody that they love. They just don't. So yeah, I was always the problem. I was always the problem in the family's mind. I was always the problem in his mind. Then I found out, like, years ago, their reasoning of why we divorced was I cheated on him. Never once did I cheat on him. Never once. I confided in a lot of our friends. Now, one of those friends I'm married to this day, but whenever this all came out, he was in a relationship. Which, fine. Did I have a little crush? Sure. But I was going through so much that it was like, whenever he was telling me, the best friend now, my husband now, he's like, you need to take time for yourself. You need to know what it's like to be able to go out and do whatever you want. You've been married since you were 18 years old. Like, there's so much life to live that you need to experience before you even think about getting in a relationship with somebody else. And I took that seriously for a year and a half. Probably closer to a year, but so I did all the things. Like, I had my little partying stage. I was never a partier. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going out clubbing. If I was going out to a bar, it was to not think about things. Because even after we divorced, those thoughts were still in my head. They were still in my head. When I tell you years, like, I'm still in therapy to this day over it. But I will say it started a downward spiral whenever I started taking medicines. I ended up being addicted and had a very long and scary road with opioids. And you can see that on my TikTok down below. It took a lot of years to forgive myself for the situation, to forgive him for myself, to forgive him just in general. It took a lot for me to start loving myself and for my personality to come back and start showing. I will never be the same person because you grow every day, but I literally think back and I'm like, wow, like a completely different person from whenever I was 17 and 18. You just can't tell a 17 or 18-year-old anything. You just can't. Do I think the age of consent needs to be raised? Sure, because definitely my frontal lobe was not developed, nowhere near it. So I just want to say I did try things to stay in the marriage. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm mad at you and I'm never coming back. Never was that. I tried so many things to take it away and to numb my pain because I thought it was all me. He had betrayed. It's all me. He was never the problem. Never once. So yeah, and whenever I did, I had opened up to them about that. Like, I tried these things to stay, and they were like, oh, see, I told you, it's your fault. So imagine somebody telling you that and their family every day, like constantly in your head, and you will believe it. So I did try. I tried. I gave it my all, and that's whenever I knew I was done because I had done everything I knew to do to save the marriage, and it just wasn't savable, and that's okay. Of how I met my now husband. So I divorced the teacher back in 2018 or 2019. I think I filed in like 2018, state of Alabama, you have to wait 60 days before a judge will sign off on it. So it was probably in 2019 in reality. So I mentioned the block party that we had all went to. We were all really good friends. We lived in an apartment complex. So, of course, like, we were always hanging out with our friends at the pool and having block parties that night where we all cook out and eat. So, I want to say it was, like, my freshly 21st birthday that we had went. And I'm just now, like, wanting to drink and have fun and, like, do all the things, you know, with everybody. And he was ready to go home. So, I've mentioned this before. He was ready to go back to the apartment, and I was not. And so it caused an argument between him and I. And there was multiple arguments in front of our friends before this where I would be out at the pool and he's mad that I'm not home. A pool that he wanted to go to first. I just had to leave as soon as he was ready. So we get in this argument. He ends up storming off to the house. I, of course, end up going after him because I just did. I truly don't know. I should have just let him go then, but I did not. And we ended up getting in an argument at the house, and a lot of the friends started to reach out and talk to me and be like, hey, like, something's going on. Like, there's definitely red flags. Like, we're all catching on. We're worried about you. Are you safe? Like, are y'all okay? Like, what's going on? And so the one friend that I trusted to the full extent, I had finally messaged him back and was like, I'm truly so tired of keeping this pent up for my, like, to protect him. Like, I was so tired because that's all I had done our whole relationship was protect him. And most protect him from legal issues. Like, I had done that our whole relationship, and I was just exhausted. I was exhausted. So I ended up telling a friend, like, this is what's been going on, and he's in a relationship at this point. So I want y'all to keep this in mind. He was in a relationship at this point, and he was like, come outside, like, let's talk. And I'm like, no, like, that's not really how that works. Like, I'm still married. Like, no, that's not the way that works. And he's like, well, the next time, like, that we all hang out, like, we need to talk because this is wrong and you don't deserve that and nobody deserves that, and there's so much more to life than that. And that was kind of the gist of the conversation. And I had told him, like, you know, I want to tell my dad. He very much encouraged that, you know, like, you definitely need to talk to your support system. Like, I'm here. If you need anything, if something goes south, you come up to my apartment. And he lived on the back side of the neighborhood. We lived at the front. So he would literally checked on me every day to make sure everything was okay. Well, the morning that he went through my phone, he found those messages between me and my now husband, which we had done nothing. So it was literally him just checking on me and me telling him about all the domestic violence and abuse that I was going through. And then he also saw the text between my dad and I. So whenever he calls me and he's like, he comes in the room that morning, he's like, I went through your phone. We need to talk whenever I get home from work. I was like, okay, fine. The first thing I did was call my dad, number one, and call the best friend that lived in my now husband back in the back of the neighborhood. And I'm like, hey, like, shit's gone south. Like, he went through my phone. He saw, like, he knows that I'm asking for a divorce. He knows that I'm leaving. And the friend was like, do I need to come down there? Like, do I need to come get your stuff? And I'm like, no, like, he's went to work. He went to work. I should be fine. And my dad's like, you need to start packing things, like, pack some stuff in your car for tonight. That way you don't have to go back. And I remember he was blowing up my phone. So I answered it, and he's like, I'm coming home. And I was like, cause I was like, I still have to go to work. Like, normal people have work. So I worked from like 1 to 9:30 that night, and I was like, so I'm not going to get home till late, so, like, you can either stay up or whatever. And he's like, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm turning around. I'm coming home. We need to talk, blah, 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 blah. So I called the friend again, and I'm like, he's on his way home. Like, he's not going to work. Like, I'm really worried about it. So the best friend in my phone, his name, it was in there as B, because that's what my husband's name is, James Braxton. Most people call him JB. A lot of people call him B. A lot of people call him James. A lot of people call him Braxton. So he was in my phone as B because that's what I call him. And so he's like, who is that? Who is that? And I'm like, it's JB. So he calls Bunker, which is another one of our friends. That's a nickname. And he's like talking to them, and he's like, did you know, like, Amy and JB are talking? Like, she's been talking about our relationship to him. And he's like, no, I didn't know that. And he's like, but I know JB's in a relationship. JB was in a relationship. He was. So kind of halted there because we had not done anything. So me and the teacher at that point were like going at it, and I'm like, I'm not staying here because it was not being pleasant. So I ended up, I think I went to my best friend. So the best friend that she's the one that went that night with the box cutter in the back of her pocket. I went to her house because she was at work at the time. She was my assistant manager. And kind of let the day play out. And my phone's gradually getting blown up and blown up and blown up and blown up. And I remember going to work and sitting with her and just boo-hooing. Just laying it all out for her. Probably like word vomit to her. And she's like, she had let me know that she had been in a situation like the one I've been in. And she was so there for me. All of them were. Like, I had the best of friends, and I still do. Even though I lost so many friends whenever this all came out, it shows you who truly are your friends. Absolutely. When you go through something hard, you will find out who your friends are, and they are the ones that will last. So she's just like, let me go and get your stuff. She's like, and you can come back to the house, like, you can stay there, whatever you need to do, but your stuff does not need to stay there. And the only thing that I was worried about was my clothes. Of course, we had adopted dogs, and I will touch on that. We had adopted dogs. Of course, I was worried about the dogs, but I had nowhere to take the dogs. He was okay with keeping them until the end of it, and he was like, no, I need you to come get them. I still don't know what he did with the dogs. And I think about them a lot. I think about Mally and Lucy a lot, and I'd love to know where they were, because once I got settled down in my apartment, I definitely would have taken them. They were my babies. I would have never... It broke my heart having to leave them behind. It truly did. It truly did. And I can't say that. That was probably the hardest part of the freaking divorce. Was the dogs. But whenever I'll say this, whenever I'm done with somebody, I'm done with them. The only thing I was worried about was the dogs. So my now husband, JB, he was in a relationship, I think for a year. I will call it a situationship. He was in a situationship. And so it wasn't like he was tied down. And yeah, like after the divorce and when we would hang out, did we kiss? Yes. We're grown adults. We did what grown adults do. And that's all I'm going to say on that. We always knew, like, whenever we started, like, hanging out like that we would end up together. But it took us, I want to say a year and a half before we ever even were like, yeah, we're dating. So it's not like, I divorced teacher to be with my now husband. That's not how that worked. And I never thought I would get married again. But whenever I tell y'all my husband, he loves me, is so patient with me, will do anything for me, will burn the city down to get to me. That man loves me, and I love him. And that was the eye-opener of my ex. Never. I always protected him. He never protected me. And my now husband, protecting me and his child is at the forefront of his mind at all times. So I just want to say, if you're in these situations, I promise you somebody will come along and treat you way better. They will love you better. They will be there for you better. They will protect you. They will do whatever it takes. And I'm so glad I found my happy ending, and I'm so glad it's with JB.